That night I was stuck at work far later than usual. An urgent task had come out, at the middle of nowhere. I found myself chained to my desk well past midnight. I didn't mind much, although I probably should have. But tomorrow was my day off, so I figured I could afford to stay late and just finish up everything right. What I didn't anticipate was the snow. It had started falling sometime during the evening, and by the time I packed up to leave, the world outside was blanketed in white. The snow isn't usual around here, but my drive home involved crossing a mountain pass, and the weather made me feel uneasy. Better safe than sorry, I told myself, deciding to take a longer route through the neighboring town. It wasn't ideal, but it seemed safer. By the time I started driving, the snow had mercifully stopped. That night was eerily quiet, the roads slick and empty. I could have just taken my usual route, I thought while I was yawning. Oh well, at least I'll get a good sleep tomorrow. It wasn't long before I left the neighboring town behind. The road stretched out ahead of me, flanked by quiet farmland on one side and a large, sluggish river on the other side. Streetlights grew scarce, and the glow of houses became few and far between. It was the kind of darkness that played tricks on your mind. Shadows that flickered at the edge of your headlights, shapes that dissolved as quickly as they appeared. I kept my eyes peeled for deer and other small animals. Around here they have a habit of darting into the road at the worst possible moment. I blinked. Up ahead, I thought I could see a figure under the streetlight. I slowed down instinctively, squinting to see through the glow of my headlights. At first, I thought it might be an animal, maybe a dog crawling around by the edge of the road. But as I drew closer, I realized I was very, very wrong. It was a woman. She was on all fours, frantically clawing at the ground, as though searching for something. Her movements were strange, erratic, and desperate, her dark coat blending almost seamlessly into the night. What the hell is she doing out here? I muttered, my pulse quickening. I slowed to a near stop, my headlights sweeping over her. She didn't react at all to the light. She just kept crawling, her hands skimming the icy road, as if whatever she was searching for might vanish at any moment. I sat there for a minute or two, debating what to do. Part of me wanted to keep driving, to leave whatever this was behind, but another part of me knew that I couldn't. It was freezing outside, and she was clearly in trouble. Finally, I took a deep breath, turned off the engine, and stepped out of the car. Excuse me, I called out, keeping a cautious distance. Are you okay? Do you need help? She didn't respond. She didn't even look at me. She just kept muttering something under her breath, crawling back and forth across the road. What are you looking for? I asked. Stepping closer this time, my boots crunched on the soft, icy pavement. For a split second she froze. Then, in a single terrifying motion, she turned and grabbed my arms. Her face shot up close to mine, so close that I could see the faint glint of frost clinging to her dark hair. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, wild. Her grip was strong. I tried to jerk myself free, but her fingers were like iron. It's not here, she whispered hoarsely, her breath freezing in the air between us. It's gone, it's not here. It's all wrong. I wrenched myself back with all the strength I could muster, stumbling a few steps away. My heart was pounding, my skin crawling with a primal terror I couldn't explain. What isn't here? I stammered, breathless. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she dropped her hands to her sides and stared at me with an expression I'll never forget, a mix of confusion, horror, and emptiness. I hit someone, she said suddenly, voice trembling. I hit someone with my car. They were lying right here and I saw them, but they're gone. They're gone. They're not here anymore. Every hair on my body stood on end. I took a shaky step back, my mind reeling. What do you mean? Did you call the police? She didn't answer. She just turned back to the ground and began crawling again, her voice dropping to a frantic murmur. "It's not here. It's not here. Where is it?" I don't know what possessed me, but I decided to check. Maybe she had hit someone, and she was in shock. Maybe the person had wandered off. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and scanned around me. The beam of light revealed nothing. Then I noticed the tire tracks leading off of the road, cutting through the snowy field. My stomach dropped. "Oh no," I whispered, following the tracks. About 20 meters off of the road, I found it. A car half buried in the snow. Its headlights long since dead. It had crashed headlong into the edge of a field, smoke still curling faintly from the hood. "This must be her car," I muttered, approaching cautiously. "How the hell did she survive that?" I circled the car, shining my flashlight into the shattered windows. The interior was empty. Nobody. Thank God. Still, something felt off. The air around me was so still, so quiet. It felt like the world was holding its breath. I turned back towards the road, phone pressed to my ear as I called the police. "Hello, I'm reporting an accident. There's a woman here. She says she hit someone. I found her car, but..." I trailed off as I approached the streetlight. The woman was gone. I spun in a circle, my phone's light cutting through the darkness. She wasn't there. The road was empty. Only the sound of the crunch of my boots on the icy pavement was left. "What the hell?" I whispered. My voice was trembling. The police arrived about 10 minutes later. I was shaking so badly I could barely explain what had happened. I led them to the crashed car, and what I saw stopped me cold. The woman. She was in the driver's seat, dead. Her body was frozen, her hands still clutching the wheel. Her face was pale, her eyes shut, as though she had never gotten out of the car at all. "No," I whispered, stumbling backwards. "No, I saw her. She grabbed me, she talked to me, she was alive." The officers gave me a very strange look. Are you sure you didn't imagine it?" one asked, gently. I didn't answer. I couldn't. All I could hear was her voice echoing in my ears. "It's not here. It's not here. It's gone. It's all wrong." That night I didn't sleep. I can still see her face when I close my eyes. I could still hear her voice when the snow falls. I don't know what happened that night. I don't think I want to know. But I think maybe she wanted me to find her. And what she was searching for? Who knows? Life itself. This is a story told to me by a close friend, a friend who loved climbing mountains. He was an experienced climber, someone who had found solace in pushing himself against Mother Nature's unforgiving beauty. Yet this one trip left a mark on him, a tale he only shared once, over drinks, his low voice as if recounting it might invite something back. It happened during a winter climb. The plan was simple, a 3-day, 2-night expedition through a snow-covered mountain range. There were 5 of them in the group. A group of friends who trusted each other implicitly. They were prepared for the cold, the isolation, the dangers that came with climbing in the dead of winter, but nothing could have prepared them for what awaited them on that climb. The first night. The first day had been grueling. Fresh snow made every step feel heavier. and the wind lashed at them like invisible hands trying to push them back. By sunset, they managed to set up their tents in a wide, lonely snowfield. They were exhausted, but the camaraderie was strong. After a warm meal, they each crawled into their sleeping bags, ready to recover for the day ahead. Sometime during the night, my friend, let's call him Hiro, was woken up by a sound. "Hey! Hey!" A faint voice far off in the distance. It was calling out, almost swallowed up by the thick silence of the snow. Hiro laid there for a moment, disorientated, before checking his watch. 2:13 a.m. Who the hell could be out there? The voice came from the direction they'd climbed earlier that day. The way back down the mountain. Hiro sat up, listening carefully. "Hey! Hey!" The sound was unmistakable now. Someone was calling out for help. Hiro quickly shook his companions awake. "Hey, wake up, there's someone out there, do you hear that?" Groggy and annoyed, the others eventually heard it too. Their irritation melted into concern. Could it be a lost climber, a victim of an accident? Out here in the cold, every minute matters. The 5 of them grabbed their headlamps and rushed outside, their breath frosting in the freezing air as they scanned the darkness. "Hey! Daijoubu desu ka? Are you okay out there?" Hiro shouted, his voice echoing back from the void. "Anyone there? Can you hear us?" Another called. The instant they spoke, the voice stopped. The snowfield fell silent again, suffocatingly so. They stood there, turning their lamps in every direction. There was no sign of anyone. No tracks in the snow, no distant shadows, just the whisper of the wind passing through the frozen landscape. "Maybe we scared them off," one of the friends suggested hesitantly. Though no one really believed it. Who got scared of potential rescuers? Still, with no further sign of life, they eventually returned to the tent. Confused, but too tired to debate it. One by one, they slipped back into uneasy sleep as the wind howled outside. The second night. The next day they pushed further, climbing higher and crossing a series of jagged ridges. It was brutal work, but by late afternoon they'd reached their goal, a spot sheltered enough to set up camp just below the summit. Tomorrow they'd make their final push. That night, Hiro woke up again. Not from a sound this time, but from a growing pressure in his bladder. Grumbling, he unzipped his sleeping bag, braced himself for the cold, and crawled out of the tent. Outside, the snow glistened under the faint light of a waxing moon. The world was silent, still. Hiro moved a few paces away from the tent to relieve himself, his breath steaming in the icy air. Then he noticed something. A light. It flickered weakly in the distance. A small swaying glow against the dark slope of the mountain. It was far off near the direction of the summit. Hiro frowned. Another climber? That seemed unlikely. It was the middle of the night. Why would someone be out here? Without thinking, Hiro called out softly, "Hey!" mimicking the voice he heard the night before. The light immediately went out, and then from the darkness, where the light had been, a voice echoed back, "Hey! Hey!" Hiro froze. It was the same as the night before. The tone, the cadence, everything. But this time it wasn't coming from behind them. It was up ahead, from the summit they were supposed to reach tomorrow. Then it spoke again, only this time Hiro's blood ran cold. "Daijoubu desu ka? Are you alright? Are you okay?" It was his own voice. The exact words he had shouted into the snow the previous night, perfectly mimicked. The voice floated down from the direction of the summit, distant, yet unmistakably his. Hiro stumbled backwards towards the tent, his breath ragged. He didn't dare look behind him as he scrambled into his sleeping bag, yanking it over his head like a child hiding from a nightmare. Don't look, don't listen, don't move. His heart pounded so loudly, he thought that it might wake the others. Outside, the world was quiet again, but Hiro knew something was still there, watching. He lay there shaking until exhaustion finally dragged him into an uneasy sleep. The summit and descent. The morning came, clear and bright as if the night had just been a bad dream. Hiro said nothing to his friends as they packed up camp and made their final climb. The summit was beautiful and breathtaking, a snowy expanse that stretched towards the sky. They took pictures, laughed, and congratulated each other on a climb well done. But Hiro couldn't shake the unease in his chest. Every time he looked towards the ridges and the valleys below, he imagined seeing a small light flickering, waiting. The descent was long and tiring, but they made it back safely. To the base of the mountain, they celebrated over a warm meal, the tension finally lifting, as they basked in the triumph of their successful climb. It wasn't until much later, well, years later, that Hiro finally told me this story. He hadn't shared it with the others, not wanting to seem paranoid or foolish. But that voice, he said, his face pale even as he spoke. It was mine. I know it was mine. I don't know how or what it was, but it sounded exactly like me, calling out into the dark. I asked him if he'd ever gone back to that mountain. He shook his head. No, and I never will. I guess some things are better left on the frozen slopes, buried in snow and silence. But sometimes even when you leave, a part of it follows you down. This happened when I was in elementary school, on a winter morning I'll never forget. The day after a massive snowfall, everything was blanketed in untouched, pristine white. It was the kind of snow that absorbs all sound, making the world feel eerily still. My friends and I decided to head out and play in the snow. Our usual playground? A clearing near an old, abandoned, temple-like spot up in the mountains. The temple was what we called it, but I don't know if it was actually a temple. But anyways, it had been long forgotten, its walls crumbling, roof half collapsed. But it was surrounded by a large open space, perfect for games, and on that day, snowball fights. Looking back, the place was a little off. Not really a place for children to be playing. It was quiet, too quiet. But when you're young, creepy places just feel like playgrounds with extra flavor. We ran around laughing and pelting each other with snowballs, leaving footprints across a perfect white canvas. After a while, I felt the urge to pee, and I broke away from the group. "I'll be right back," I shouted, half out of breath. No one paid me much attention. I wandered a little into the woods, far enough for privacy, but still close enough to the clearing. The snow crunched beneath my boots, loud in the stillness. I finished my business quickly, and turned to head back, only to find that the clearing was completely empty. The laughter was gone, the shouting, the sounds of snow crunching underfoot, all gone. My friends had vanished. At first I thought they were messing with me. Kids do that, right? Hide and jump out when you least expect it. I cut my hands around my mouth and shouted, "Hey, where are you guys? Quit playing around." My voice echoed faintly against the woods. I walked into the center of the clearing, squinting around for any sign of movement. That's when it happened. The ground gave out beneath me. For a split second, I had no idea what had happened. One moment I was upright, and the next I was falling. I hit the ground hard, the breath knocked out of me, landing in what felt like soft dirt. Gasping, I pushed myself up. I was in a hole. It wasn't wide, barely enough room for me to stand with my arms at my sides, but it was deep. Much deeper than I expected. If I stood straight, the top of the hole was at least twice my height. At first I thought my friends had dug some kind of prank pit, but how? It would have taken hours, and I'd only been gone a few minutes. I shook the idea off, my brain trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The walls of the hole were smooth, like something had cut cleanly through the earth. There were no tools lying around, no sign of disturbances. I looked up, squinting at the white sky. "Hey, okay, you got me. This isn't funny." No one answered. A cold wind swept over the hole. I hugged my arms around myself and I called out again, louder this time. "Come on, guys, I'm serious, help me out." Still nothing. That's when I saw it. A shape appeared at the edge of the hole, peering down at me. At first I thought it was one of my friends, but something was off. The figure was small, like a little kid, maybe 5 or 6 years old. The light was strange, as though the child were backlit by an invisible sun. Its edges blurry and indistinct, but the face, I could see the face perfectly. The child was grinning. A wide, frozen smile stretched across its face, teeth showing. And where its eyes should have been, there was nothing. Just hollow, black voids, empty holes that stared straight into me. I froze, unable to move, unable to speak. Another face appeared, and then another, more and more of them, small, blurry children with empty eyes and wide, joyful smiles, peered into the hole. They surrounded the edge, heads tilted, hands on their knees, as if they were spectators watching me at the bottom of a well. For reasons I still can't explain, I didn't feel afraid. Not at first. I should have been terrified, but instead an overwhelming sadness welled up in my chest. It was heavy and suffocating, like a grief I couldn't name. My eyes started to burn, and before I knew it, I was crying. I sobbed loud and ugly, my voice echoing up the walls of the hole. The children's smiles never faltered, they just watched. Then everything went red. A blinding crimson light filled my vision, like the world itself had burst into flame. I squeezed my eyes shut, screaming, and when I opened them again, it was dusk. I blinked, dazed, my body shivering from the cold. Footsteps crunched towards me, and suddenly my friends were there, along with a couple of adults. One of them grabbed me by the arm, hauling me upright. "Where the hell have you been?" someone shouted. I couldn't answer, my mind felt blank, sluggish. I looked around. I was standing in the exact center of the clearing where I had fallen. The ground beneath me was solid, untouched snow. There was no hole, not even a dent. My friends explained that after I wandered off, I'd disappeared. When I didn't come back, they got scared and started looking for me. Adults joined the search, worried I'd fallen into a ravine, or I had been abducted or something. They said that I had been missing for hours. Hours. But to me it all felt like minutes. We went back to the clearing a few times after that, but I never saw any sign of the hole. The snow eventually melted, and there was nothing underneath. No pit, no disturbance in the earth. It was like it never existed. I always looked for it, but I never found it. I asked around, but no one could tell me anything strange about the area. Sure, there were old stories about disappearances and kamikakushi, spirits that whisk people away, but those stories exist in every town. To this day, I don't know what I saw, or where I was. Sometimes, though, I dream about that hole, about the smiling children who watched me, with their empty eyes so full of something I couldn't understand. and when I wake up, I'm always left with that same heavy feeling. Not fear, just a deep, unbearable sadness. Before we dive into this story, let's talk about Kokkuri-san, a game often compared to the Ouija board in Western culture. It's a Japanese spirit summoning ritual, popular among students looking for a thrill. While seemingly innocent, Kokkuri-san is shrouded in superstition and fear. To play, participants sit around a table and prepare the following: a sheet of paper with the hiragana alphabet, words yes and no, and the numbers 0 to 9 written on it, a coin, or in some instances a cup, an open window in which the spirit of Kokkuri-san can enter. If you use a cup, each participant blows their breath into the cup as if inviting something unseen into its space. Then they lightly rest their index fingers on the cup. One person then calls out, "Kokkuri-san, Kokkuri-san, if you're here, please move to yes," something along those lines. If the cup begins to move, Kokkuri-san has arrived. Questions can now be asked, but players must tread carefully. The rules are strict. Never ask about your lifespan. Never forget to send Kokkuri-san away properly by asking the spirit to leave. And never, under any circumstances, treat the game as a joke. Neglecting these rules might just leave the spirit lingering. Worse yet, it could bring something unwanted into your world. Now here's the story called Sa-mu-i, or cold in English. This happened when I was in middle school, during a cold December break. There was this classmate of mine, A, whose house was basically the place to hang out. It was perched at the edge of town near a rugged coastal cliff overlooking the sea. A's parents were often out for work, so it was perfect for a rowdy bunch of kids to mess around without any supervision. That year, Kokkuri-san had become all the rage at school. Kids were whispering about strange answers, weird happenings, your usual play at your own risk kind of thing. Naturally, we had to try it. A's living room was dim, the light outside already fading into that early winter twilight. We set up the game on a round wooden table, a piece of paper with the alphabet, yes, no, and numbers 0 through 9. One of the rules that I had heard about was to avoid any words or syllables that might accidentally spell out animal names like Tora, tiger, or Shika, deer. It was supposedly bad luck. Then we opened the window. I can still see the curtains swaying in the breeze when I think back to that day. Instead of a coin, we used a plain, unmarked glass cup. Something about its emptiness feeling unsettling. We all exhaled into it, as though breathing something into the cup itself, before placing our trembling fingers lightly on its rim. My friend A, the self-declared master of ceremonies, cleared his throat and began, "Kokkuri-san, Kokkuri-san, if you're here, please move to yes." The silence was thick, and for a few seconds nothing happened. Then, with a slow, almost reluctant scrape, the cup inched towards yes. We stifled nervous giggles and glanced at each other, trying to act braver than we felt. A grinned, though his voice wavered, as he asked the first question. "Who does X like?" For context, X is me. I'm staying in on though. My cheeks burned. "What the hell, man? Don't ask it something stupid like that," I protested. But A, he ignored me, smirking. At first the cup didn't move, but then it began to shift, shuddering, almost vibrating as it crept across the paper. We leaned in closer, expecting it to spell out a girl's name, but instead, It stopped on a single syllable. Sa. We blinked, confused. Then the cup moved again. Mu. And once more. E. Cold. That's what it spelled. Cold. What the hell does that mean? I muttered. I started to get a bad feeling. A knot tightened in my stomach. Is it messing up? B, another friend asked, trying to sound dismissive, but his voice was quieter than before. We asked another question, anything to break the unease. Why are you saying that? The cup only repeated itself. It spelled out Sa, Mu, I. Cold. The room felt then heavier. The air was icy, as though the walls were pressing in around us. I shivered, though the heater in the corner still hummed. I noticed A rubbing his shoulders as if he was trying to shake off a chill. A dull headache began to throb behind my eyes. I don't like this. Let's stop it. I blurted out, unable to hide my unease. Everyone nodded quickly, relief flashing across their faces, but when we tried to send Kokkuri-san away, something went wrong. A said the words we were supposed to. Kokkuri-san, thank you for coming. Please return now. We waited. The cup didn't move. Say it again, B hissed, sounding scared now. A repeated his words, his voice cracking. Still, nothing happened. I don't know which one of us did it, but then somebody yanked their finger off of the cup, and that broke the spell. We're done. Let's just leave it, I yelled, my voice frantic. Well, nice one, you idiots. Now my house is going to be haunted, A said. B then grabbed the cup, nearly knocking it over. If we break the cup and burn the paper, it'll be fine, he muttered, though he sounded anything but sure. We left it there. I remember excusing myself and literally running home. 3 days later, the news spread through town. They'd found a woman's body, washed up on the beach near A's house. A drowned woman. Authorities said that she had been in the water for days, her body frozen from the icy winter sea. When I heard that, my blood ran cold. Cold. To this day, nothing strange has happened to me or the others. We got lucky, I think. Maybe we broke the connection in time. But every time winter rolls around, and the nights grow long and dark, I think of that cup, of those words, repeating like a plea. Sa, mu, I. Cold. And I wonder if someone, something, is still there waiting in A's empty house, watching, shivering in the dark. I work in equipment maintenance for telecom facilities, particularly for antenna towers in remote areas. I've never been a superstitious guy. Ghosts, yokai, haunted places. I always figured that those were just scary stories meant for campfires and kids. That changed last year. Every now and then when I think back to that day, December 27th, it feels unreal, like something I imagined or dreamed. But the memories are too vivid, the details too sharp. It's been over a year, and I still can't shake it. It was the end of December, just before the new year. My supervisor, K-san, another colleague, T-san, and I were sent to inspect a transmission tower up on a mountain. Snow had started falling earlier that month, but we didn't think much of it until we hit the road leading up to the tower. Our car struggled against the thick snow, blanketing the narrow, winding path. By the time the tires started spinning uselessly, we had no choice but to stop in front of an old, weathered shrine. Snow crunched under our boots as we got out, the silence of the mountains deep and unnatural. "We'll have to walk," Kei-san said, putting on his gloves. The tower was only about 1 kilometer away, but it was through dense trees. It wouldn't be that bad, but still, it wasn't great. The walk wasn't easy. The snow had crusted over with ice, cracking loudly with every step we took. Oddly enough, the snow didn't cling to the trees around us. The branches were bare and black. I asked Kei-san about it. "Snow doesn't stay on the trees here," he said casually. "Falls right off." I didn't like the sound of that. After about half an hour of trudging through the woods, the silhouette of the tower appeared through the trees. As we cut off the main road and onto a fenced path that led to the tower, Kei-san stopped abruptly, staring up into the canopy. "Something's caught up there." T-san and I followed Kei-san's gaze. Tangled in the trees about 5 meters above us, we saw it. Thin white strips swaying in the wind. At first they looked like pieces of cloth, but as we got closer to the fence surrounding the tower, we realized they weren't fabric. They were paper. Black markings were smeared across them, like calligraphy that had been torn apart. The papers were wrapped tightly around the fence's iron bars and fluttered noiselessly. "What the hell is this?" T-san muttered. "Prank maybe?" I suggested. But I didn't really believe it. It didn't look like kids' work. It felt deliberate, ritualistic even, and that gave me the creeps. Kei-san shook his head, muttering something I didn't catch. I looked over at him, but he didn't look as if he wanted to repeat himself. We had to press on with our work, so T-san dug out the keys from his bag, ready to open the gate, but before he could put the key in the lock, he realized that the gate was already open. He looked at Kei-san with a bit of annoyance, and Kei-san said, "I could have sworn I locked up last time." The funny thing is, I remember him saying it as he locked up last time. We had no real other option but to get in there and do what we came to do. So we pushed the gate open and entered. Inside the tower's control room, a strange, sour smell hit us immediately. It was faint but pervasive, like something rotten hiding just out of sight. Kei-san wrinkled his nose. "What is that smell?" We split up to do the inspection, checking power panels, comms equipment, and logs. It didn't take long before T-san called us over. "Hey, come over, look at this." He was standing near a stairwell leading to the tower's upper platform. At his feet was a pile of coarse, brown fur. "Looks like deer fur," Kei-san said, frowning. He prodded it with his boot. Beneath it, faint splatters of dried blood stained the concrete. "An animal must have gotten in here," I said. But something didn't add up. There was no bones, no remains, and not nearly enough blood for something that had been killed. Besides, the door had been tightly shut when we arrived. Kei-san looked around, visibly uneasy. "Let's finish up and get out of here. It's freezing." I gathered up the hair and threw it outside. It felt like the right thing to do. I brought some snow in from outside and dropped it on the bloodstains. I wanted to get rid of them. I hoped that the snow would help dilute the bright red marks on the concrete. And it kind of did. We worked quickly. The sooner we left, the better. But as I was scribbling down my final notes, I heard it. A low, hollow sound, distant but distinct. I froze, my pen hovering over the paper. "Did you hear that?" I called out. Kei-san answered from outside. "What? I thought you were the one who shouted." I looked towards the door. "No, I didn't." T-san appeared, looking equally confused. "I heard it too. I thought it was you two goofing around." We exchanged glances. Something was off. We finished the inspection and stepped outside. Snow had started falling again, thick and silent. I glanced around. T-san? He wasn't there. I turned in a circle, scanning the trees. There was no sign of him. A cold dread settled in my stomach. T-san! From somewhere behind the tower, the sound of boots crunching snow echoed. A moment later, T-san and K-san emerged together, looking annoyed. Where were you? What do you mean? We were checking the bolts up top. But I stopped. I couldn't explain it. I had just seen them outside. I thought. Hadn't I? The three of us locked up the tower, then double-checked it was locked, and began our descent. I trailed behind Kay and T-san, my boots sliding on the icy slope. The forest seemed even quieter than before. Too quiet. I kept my head down, watching their footprints in the snow. That's when I noticed it. Between their boot prints was another set of tracks, smaller and bare. Barefoot? I stared at the prints, my breath catching in my throat. They were fresh. Whoever made them had to be close. The rest of the walk was a blur. I didn't dare look up again. I kept my eyes fixated on the snow ahead of me, following K-san and T-san as we hurried down the path. The bare footprints appeared again. And again, just a meter ahead, as if something or someone was walking alongside us. When we finally reached the car, I nearly ran to it. I thought it was over. Then Kei-san said, "Let's stop by that shrine before we leave." "No," I said immediately. "We're leaving now." It was almost dark, and if we spent any more time here, the road would freeze over and we wouldn't be able to get home. Even though they should have known that, the two of them said things like, "We have to go to the shrine, something is wrong. And it'll be quick, you should go too." Looking at the entrance, the trees behind the torii gate were so thick that it was impossible to tell what anything was. I absolutely did not want to be going into a place like that when it was almost pitch black out after what we experienced. But I was also scared of being left alone there, so I desperately tried to persuade them to just get in the car and leave. Somehow it worked, and I managed to get them into the car. I don't remember the drive back at all. Kei-san and T-san sat silently in the back, their heads lolling strangely. At some point I realized they were staring straight ahead, eyes wide open. I didn't dare look at the empty passenger seat next to me. When we reached the base of the mountain, they insisted I drop them off. "Just leave us here," Kei-san said flatly. They wouldn't explain. I didn't argue. I wanted to get out of there. Neither of them showed up to work the next day, or the day after that. T-san quit via a letter he mailed to the office, no explanation. Kei-san, he vanished. I haven't been able to reach him on his phone. One time he did pick up, but he asked me not to call again. He didn't turn up for his next shift. No one's heard from him since. And sometimes when I'm alone, I still hear it. Oh. I should have never left them on that mountain. I don't care if I sound stupid, but I think something was out there with us. Hi, Jay here. Just wanted to wrap up this one with a little explanation. I believe that this story is an account of an encounter with an unknown force in a remote, snowy setting. A place steeped in tradition, eerie atmosphere, a suggestion of a yokai or a spiritual entity tied to the land, especially when you consider the abandoned shrine, the ritualistic paper with calligraphy and the strange bare footprints. In Japan as well, mountains are often considered sacred yet dangerous realms, inhabited by spirits and supernatural beings. The bare footprints and the strange noises, odd behavior by Kei and T-san as well, seem to hint at an entity luring or influencing them. The shrine likely served as a ward to contain whatever resided in that forest, but neglect over time allowed its power to fade. By entering the area and interacting with the tower, the workers may have unknowingly disturbed something that didn't want to be seen. Kei-san and T-san's insistence on visiting the shrine before leaving and their vacant behavior on the drive back suggest that they were marked or possessed by the entity. Their disappearances afterwards confirm whatever they encountered on the mountain may have claimed them. I don't know if that's helpful to put a little explanation bit at the end, but yeah, it is what it is. It was a story I heard that chilled me to the core, one that remains etched in my mind like frost on a window pane. I heard it happened about 8 years ago. S. Mia, a seasoned TV director, was assigned to film a winter mountain documentary. He was joined by T.O., the cameraman, and S. Moto, the sound technician. 2 experienced mountain guides accompanied the trio to ensure their safety too. Their destination was a mountain, well known for its picturesque but treacherous slopes. Fortunately, a ropeway extended to the 8th station, making the ascent far easier than an ordinary winter climb. It would not be an easy journey, hauling heavy filming equipment up to a small mountain shelter, but it did not seem perilous. That day, the afternoon sun bathed the snow-capped peaks in golden light as they ascended. From the gondola, the mountains seemed serene. The shelter where they'd planned to stay for the night was already visible from the ropeway station. It wasn't deep into the wilderness, it was right there, a short trek away. Still, the guides warned them, the winter mountains can turn deadly fast. Even a clear day like this has claimed lives. Esmia was skeptical. The shelter was right there, within sight, yet the guides told him grim stories. Climbers and hikers losing their way during a sudden blizzard, swallowed by a whiteout, the world vanishing into a blinding, unbroken white void. Some had stumbled unknowingly into deep ravines, while others collapsed from exhaustion, mere steps from salvation, their bodies discovered frozen in the snow the next morning. "I've found more than a few bodies out here myself," one of the guides muttered darkly as they hiked. The shelter itself was a modest, cramped building. Inside was a dirt floor, a raised wooden platform for sleeping, and a ladder leading to a loft, barely enough space for 6 people. A single naked bulb hung from the ceiling, offering a weak, lonely light. There was no heating, no stove, nothing to push back against the cold. Outside, the last light of day was dying, and the temperature plummeted, well below freezing. By the time they finished their meal, their breath turned to clouds in the freezing air. Conversation dwindled as the cold gnawed at their bones. "We're lucky there's no other campers here tonight," one of the guides said, trying to sound optimistic. "There's room to sleep comfortably." The team split up. The 2 guides and Esmia took the loft, while T.O. and S-Moto settled on the wooden platform below. Esmia climbed the rickety ladder, each step creaking in protest beneath his weight. Wrapped up in his sleeping bag, he lay facing the loft wall, trying to ignore the chill that crept through his body. It was deep into the night when Esmia woke up to the sound of the wind, howling. He groaned quietly, blinking as the darkness pressed in around him. Outside, the storm was gathering, shrieking against the thin walls of the shelter. Tomorrow might be rough, he thought, but we have supplies, 3 days' worth. We'll wait it out. He closed his eyes, willing himself back to sleep. The wind screamed louder, rattling the shelter. Then he heard a sound beneath the wail of the storm. Thud, thud. His eyes snapped open. Someone was knocking at the door. Who could that be? The ropeway had closed hours ago. No one should have been able to reach the shelter in the dark. Not in this weather. Yet someone was outside. Thud, thud. Esmir's heart thumped in his chest. He strained to listen, barely breathing. Then, slowly the creak of the shelter door reached his ears. Someone had come inside. For a long moment there was nothing but silence. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate. They moved across the dirt floor below. Esmir lay perfectly still, his body rigid. Whoever it was had just stepped onto one of the wooden platforms. Creak. They were walking in circles around where T.O. and S-Moto were sleeping. The boards groaned under their weight, yet there was no sound of anyone settling down to sleep. The footsteps just continued, pacing aimlessly. Who the hell is that? Esmir squeezed his eyes shut, panic clawing at his chest. This wasn't right. This couldn't be a climber. Something was wrong. Creak. The footsteps stopped. Then the sound Esmir dreaded the most. The ladder creaking. Someone, something, was climbing up to the loft. The rungs groaned as the intruder ascended, one step at a time. Esmir didn't dare turn around. He lay facing the wall, gripping his sleeping bag so tightly, his knuckles turned white. The footsteps reached the loft. He could feel someone standing behind him, so close he swore he felt the weight of their gaze pressing on the back of his head. Then they moved. Whoever it was began to walk around the loft. Esmir's heart pounded so loudly he thought it would burst. There were 3 people sleeping in the loft. It was barely big enough for that. Yet he heard footsteps circling him, pacing, walking where there wasn't room to walk. He felt the boards sinking under each step, as though heavy weight were pressing down. This isn't real. This can't be real. But the footsteps continued, slow, deliberate, relentless. Esmir lay there, every hair on his body standing on end, frozen, in a state of paralyzed terror. He never turned to look, he couldn't. The intruder's presence was suffocating, oppressive. It filled the loft like a thick fog, smothering him in dread. And then at some point, the sound stopped. The next morning, the team awoke to snowfall. Esmir hadn't slept a single second. When they returned to the ropeway station, Esmir couldn't shake the events of the night. That evening at the lodge in the valley, he finally mentioned it to the others. Did anyone else hear someone come into the shelter last night? S-Moto froze, then nodded slowly. Yeah. I thought it was just me, but someone came in, I'm sure of it. Tio looked paled. I heard it too. Footsteps. Someone was walking around us. The guide said nothing for a moment, then one muttered under his breath. Mountain shelters. Strange things happen out there. They didn't discuss it further. No one wanted to. Years later, Esmir ran into S-Moto again. On a whim, he asked him about that night. S-Moto hesitated, then smiled faintly. You know, I saw it. Esmir froze. Saw what? S-Moto's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The person who came in. I didn't open my eyes, but somehow I saw them. I still remember it perfectly. Winter gear, heavy backpack. They looked exhausted, like they'd been wandering for days. When they set their pack down, I could feel how relieved they were to be there. He trailed off, staring into the distance. It's been years, but I still think about them. Whoever they weren't supposed to be there. That shelter has since been torn down, but the memory remains. A whisper on the wind that howls through the winter mountains. A reminder that some souls never leave the cold.